night, and welcome to Fast Break Breakfast NBA Podcast. My name is Keith, here alone for a solo interview episode. The full episode with John and Chuck will be out later in the week. NBA playoffs heating up. All four series are looking pretty competitive. The Rockets, as I went on my full reverse jinx on James Harden, paid off. They took Game 3 from the Warriors. You have the higher seeded Nuggets and Raptors getting huge road wins in Game 4 with their backs against the wall. And now maybe they're back in control with the home court advantage as their series become just a best of 3. You got Bucks, Celtics. This is the good stuff. This is when the playoffs are peaking, I think, right now. These second-round matchups are very tight and very exciting. I mean, that Nuggets 4 overtime game almost killed me. I know I couldn't go to sleep. And the tension, the drama, amazing. Great stuff. While you're watching these playoff games, I invite you to join me over on Draft. You can download the Draft app in the iTunes Store, the Android App Store, or at draft.com/fastbreak. Draft is by far my favorite daily fantasy game. I may have been doing $1 three-person drafts against some strangers, then against some listeners, doing some head-to-head showdowns with listeners. My username on there is FastBreakBreakfast. So if you want to play me, say heads up for $1 on any night in the playoffs, just invite me to a game, and I will play you. I will do that constantly. So download the Draft app. If you use our code FASTBREAK, you get free $3. You can enter a $3 game, or hey, say 3 $1 games. You want to split it up. So draft.com/fastbreak. Use our code FastBreak. Today's episode is with Chris Vernon of Grind City Media, the Grizzlies media arm, and of The Ringer, talking all about the Grizzlies and their off-season and all the many variables that are going into that. Obviously, the coach and Mike Conley maybe not wanting to be a Grizzly, and then the lottery selection. Oh, and speaking of the lottery selection, big news for people anywhere near Nashville. We are hosting, me, John, and Chuck are hosting a NBA draft lottery watch party on Tuesday, May 14th at the Mainstay from 7 to 8 p.m. So just a brief 1-hour hangout. We'll hang out afterwards as well to watch some playoff basketball. But we'll be giving away Grizzlies prizes. We have a bunch of new Grizzlies prizes to give away. Also, your first drink is free, courtesy of us. We will buy your first drink if you come at the Mainstay. That's the Mainstay in East Nashville on Tuesday, May 14th at 7 p.m. So anyway, come out to that draft party. Now let's just talk to let's get to the talk with Chris Vernon. My guest today can be heard on the Ringers NBA show and is also the host of the Chris Vernon show, Chris Vernon himself. Chris, how are you?
Yo, thanks for having me on, Keith.
Glad to have you on. We always start our show talking about breakfast. Did you have a good breakfast today, or do you have any go-to breakfast habits you can share with us?
Recently, it has been acai bowls.
Oh, yeah, the acai, living that good life.
Well, I found, they have, you can go buy, they open this Trader Joe's in Memphis. And
okay.
So I can go there, and I can go there to Trader Joe's. It's pretty cheap. And then I figured if I could just throw almond milk. I saw it in some magazine, I don't know. And I was like, that looks pretty good. And so it was like almond milk, the acai thing that they sell there. It's like just like a little, it's almost like a frozen pack. That thing. Some frozen berries, a scoop of protein powder, and then like throw like this coconut granola from Trader Joe's and a banana on top. It's good. I mean, it's pretty quick. And we've got like one of those, what do they call them, ninjas?
Oh yeah,
I throw it in the ninja. I pour it in a bowl, and then I eat it. So it's probably healthier than I used to just eat like some kind of protein bar, but this has been better.
This sounds almost a superfood. It sounds like you're having a superfood.
It is a superfood. It is.
You're living that healthy life, man.
I'm getting older. I need to eat something healthy.
Yeah, I should do that. I'm older as well, and I feel it. I feel the every morning. It's like this is terrible. There's got to be a way to feel better than this.
Well, once, like, now my kids are 9 and they're 5, right?
Uh-huh.
So now it's going to go one way or the other. And I have chosen to attempt to get in some kind of shape. The other thing is, like, I don't know, like the camera thing is real. You know what I mean? The show being on camera and then doing the Grizzlies post game and stuff, like, you do become so friggin' self-conscious about the way you look.
Well, I got to assume even when you're just around professional athletes on a regular interval,
right.
You're like, you know what? I gotta do something.
Yeah, right. I didn't want to be a slob.
Right. Well, so the Grizzlies, you cover the Grizzlies for Grind City Media. You've been covering them for their whole existence. I've been a Grizzlies fan pretty much since day one as well, when they were announced they were coming to Memphis. The Grizzlies just wrapped up kind of another disappointing year. The end of the Mike and Mark era did not go how anyone really wanted. And the weird part of it, I think, is like a Grizzlies fan and then reading other Grizzlies bloggers and writers, is there's so many unknowns, there's so many variables going forward into this offseason that it's hard to even know, like, what we want or what's best for the franchise. Like, they need a coach. Next week, you're going to figure out the lottery pick, what's going to happen there. Maybe Mike Conley wants to be back. And so I don't even know, like, what I want. Like, I don't know if I want Jonas Valanciunas to come back or not. I don't know if I want to keep the pick this year or to convey it to Boston. I don't know who I want to coach the team. And I have all kinds of conflicted feelings, again, as a fan, about, like, Mike Conley. So Chris, what do you want for this offseason? Like, what are your priorities or your goals for, like, when the dominoes start falling in the next few weeks and months? Like, what do you want for this Grizzlies offseason?
All right. Well, like, number one,
well, outside of Zion Williamson. Yeah, outside of Zion Williamson.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, I think, give me a top 3 picks, and that would be number one, right?
Okay.
If I could get Williamson, Morant, or Barrett,
okay,
I would feel like, okay, now you're talking a chance at 2 big stars on this team, right? Because I do think Jaren obviously has that potential, and I think those 3, if any one of those 3 became huge stars, it would not surprise me at all. I 100% think Williamson and Morant will be. I think they're both going to be mega stars. And so the only question is the third one, Barrett, and it's without question he has a chance. So one of those 4, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I suppose somebody at 4 could end up being a star, whether it's the kid from Vandy, Darius Garland, or it's somebody that surprises us, like if a DeAndre Hunter or a Culver or a Reddish or whoever becomes a star, it can happen. But those 3, if you told me I could get a top 3 pick, I would feel amazing about that. The second thing for me is getting a coach with experience. And I've been a little bit, it's just a little bit disappointing. And again, until they make a hire, I'm not gonna make some kind of determination about it. But the names that have come out have all been, we had 1 European coach, and then we've had 2 assistants. I do think they're interviewing a lot of people, and so all the names haven't come out. But I am big on hey, you've tried this before, and what I do not want is going forward. Number one, I do not want you to be able to blame the coach. I do not want you to be able to say, oh, well, we thought this guy was going to be good, and he's not so good. So I want him to hire somebody that can coach in the NBA, has got the goods to be able to deal with the front office, to deal with the media, to deal with players, all while being able to win NBA games. And I think they have gone the other route over and over again with a lack of success, and it's always – there's always something you don't know. And so when things get going badly, which they inevitably will, and you hit a rough patch, you've got to be able to power through that and say, hey, I know this guy is a good coach and that it's not, so we've got to start looking at why is the season going the way the season is going? Because all too often what we've done is we've said the season isn't going well, it's the coach's fault. And so I am of the opinion, let's take that out of the equation. The other thing is I would like to have somebody with experience there, because the coach is obviously essential, game in, game out, and also an essential part of the front office. And you've got a lot of guys doing their jobs for the first time. I would like to have somebody that has some track record of doing a job. And while they have discounted how important a coach is, I think they've fallen on their face discounting how important a coach is over and over again. And most importantly, you cannot screw this up. It's going to be the third coach in 3 years for Dylan Brooks. It's going to be the third coach in 3 years for Ivan Rabb. And you are going into year 2 of what is 4 years for sure of Jaren Jackson. And if you hire a guy that cannot do that job and you have to fire him, now you're going to be on 3-3 for Jaren Jackson. I will tell you, with his being so involved in the career, great people, but they're not going to hang around for a clown show. I promise you that. I know them well enough to know. They won't hang around. And I do think that the Porzingis deal I think that is a sign of not just a one-off. I think it is a sign of things to come with players, that now we have seen players take the power, and even if they're in that first deal, they can say, hey, I ain't going to be re-signing here, so you better get what you can for me. And so being that you finally nailed that pick, and I do have very high hopes for Jaren in the future, I'm very, very aware of the fact that you can't screw this coaching hire up. So I want to take a lot of the variables out of that and hire somebody that I know can do that job.
So which coaches are out there right now that are unemployed that you think have that requisite NBA experience? Like I'm thinking, is it Frank Vogel? Is it like a Mike Brown? Is it someone else out there?
I would hire Mike Brown.
Okay.
I think Mike Brown is the best coach that you could get for the money.
Okay.
He has been on that Golden State Warriors bench for some time now. Obviously started with the Spurs. Go look up and down his record and what he has done. He took over that Lakers team and had an outstanding record with the Lakers the 1 year that he coached there, and then they fired him immediately into the next year. And as history will tell it, that wasn't Mike Brown's fault. That was the Kobe, Dwight, Nash year where they tried to throw that all together. Mike Brown wins, and he has won a lot of games. He's coached a 67-win team. He has coached tons of 50-win teams. And people could say, oh, yeah, well, we got to coach LeBron. Well, guess what? No coach has a good record that doesn't have good players.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. No coach wins without good players. So anybody you find that has won a lot of games in the NBA, guess what? They got to coach awesome players. So I don't use that as a demerit at all. And I also think it's not easy to coach great players. But in terms of, I bet he has a relationship with Jaren's dad too.
That makes sense.
From the Spurs days. Mm-hmm. And beyond that, he has coached LeBron. He has coached Kobe. He has coached Durant. He has coached Steph. He has coached Klay Thompson. He has coached Draymond. I mean, you look over the course of the last, 10 to 15 years, I just think he's probably the best guy that you could actually get to take that job. Because I think a lot of guys won't take the job.
Right.
So I got excited over the weekend when it said Grizzlies interview Golden State assistant, and then I found out it was Jaren Collins and not Mike Brown, because Mike Brown was there's just no debate. That guy is a good NBA basketball coach.
Yeah. Do you think that are the Grizzlies waiting until they figure out what's going to happen with the lottery pick before they make a decision, or is it unrelated? Are they just taking their time?
I think they're taking their time.
I think that's fair.
I think they're trying to flush it out. You hear all these buzzwords over and over again every time you talk to them, right? Which are process and methods, and having everything in its place to be able to make the best decision possible. And so I think that they want to feel like they've been incredibly thorough with this, and so they feel super comfortable with their decision. So I think that's why it'll be an amount of time that it takes. Going
back to the lottery selection, you say, top 3 pick obviously is a huge win. I think they have there's like an 18% chance they get a top 3 pick. Is that your cutoff for then? Would you prefer to go ahead and fulfill that obligation to Boston? Like if it's the 4 pick or the 8 pick, do you want to hang on to that? We're having a Grizzlies watch party in Nashville next week for the draft lottery, and it's going to be kind of funny because it's like a 76% chance of it's fine. We don't know if it's good or not. Like if they get stuck with the 8th or they convey. Where is that cutoff top 3, or would you still rather have a 4 and an 8 pick for building into next season?
The cutoff is 4.
Okay.
I would rather have a cutoff. I would rather have a top 4 pick or convey, because while I'm confident in who the top 3 players are going to be, no, if you can get 4, you want 4, and you want 4 specifically for the asset that is 4. Beyond whoever, you got to take out of the equation whoever the player is there. 4 is still a monster asset to have, and so, and you have seen in the past it gets paired, right? So just stay with me here. Let's say you're going into the off season and you say, okay, I'm trying to find a scenario. Okay, so Kyrie Irving goes to. Kyrie Irving ends up. He says, "I'm leaving." Yeah, so they're going to lose him for nothing. This is not the craziest thing ever. And so now Boston says, "Well, hell, we got a really good team coming back. Like, are we really just going to move Scary Terry over? He's a free agent too. Are we going to pay him starter money and they're planning to be a starter? Or what kind of deal could be out there then?" And now all of a sudden you're looking up and say, "Hey, we'll give you Mike Conley in the 4, and you give us Jaylen Brown and the contract you want to get off of, or whatever." And I know that sounds crazy on the front end, right? Like nobody's giving up on Jaylen Brown, but like we've just seen it too many times. Once upon a time, you were able to move Darren Williams, and you got the 2nd pick in the draft, in Derek Favors that year. And it's happened other times too, where you're able to move. So if you've got that asset, and even a few years ago, you've seen teams move up from 3 to 1 or from 4 to 1. You've seen them move back. And so just having that asset that is 4, especially because inevitably these teams are going to fall in love with somebody that they could take. Whether you're in love with somebody or not is a different issue. So, yeah, if I could get top 4, I would view that as a monster win, considering you did not have a disgusting season. You won 33 games, which was not what you wanted to do, but you won 33, and anybody that went to a game for the last 2 months walked out of that arena feeling pretty damn good about the product that they watched. They didn't just punt the rest of the season. And so if you didn't piss off your fan base and end up with the number 4, for sure. But if it's a choice between I get to draft 8 or convey it, I would convey it. I would convey that.
So another one of the big dominoes to fall is Mike Conley, who they reportedly put him on the trade market last year at the deadline, or this year at the deadline. And so now we're going to this offseason. Do you have the impression that Mike Conley wants to leave? It seems like the reporting was, or at least the buzz around the team was, Gasol wanted to go. Like Gasol was like, I'm kind of done here, and he waived his trade kicker, to make that deal happen. But do you think it's the same situation now with Conley, or is there something that could happen that makes him want to stay? Like, does Conley care what happens in the lottery? How do you think Mike Conley's feeling? And has he burned the bridges? Is he ready to move on, or is this scenario where he wants to continue his career in Memphis?
I think it is totally dependent on what direction the team is going to go. If you are thinking, hey, we're in rebuilding mode and we're looking for 2 to 3 years from now to be really good, then that's 100% no-brainer. He wants out. Okay. If you are going to have a team that you think, is a competitive team that's going to be a playoff team that's in the mix, then I do think that at that point it becomes a 50-50 proposition of whether or not. I also think, Keith, it is insanely dependent upon where you're going.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this isn't right. Like, okay, everybody can say Mike Conley would want to be gone. Well, yeah, Marc Gasol got to go to a place where he is literally going to be able to compete for a championship.
Mm-hmm.
How many teams really fall into that equation? Like, really fall into, I'm going there and I can compete for a title.
Yeah, and which ones need a point guard, making $34 million?
All right. Okay, so now we're dwindling that list that much further, right?
Right.
There's not that. So where do you want to go? Where do you want to be that you say, hey, I want to compete. I'm at the point, because he gave that quote. I'm at the point in my career where I do want to be competing for championships. It's a nice thing to say. I agree with it completely. There's probably some jealousy when you look at Mark and say, hey, he's playing in huge playoff games and he really has a chance at winning a title. But how many teams really have a chance at winning the title? And when you see Denver and Portland playing each other right now to see who goes to the Western Conference Finals, I do think you take a step back and you say, okay, how far are we from that? How far are we away from being able to play with those teams? And I think that's a different conversation than how far are you away from the Warriors. And frankly, the Warriors, it's very likely that they're not the Warriors next year, at least as we know them to be. And so if I do think that if you have a team, if you're able to make some deals or you're able to get some draft picks or a draft pick or whatever that helps you make some deals and that you can have a playoff team for next year. And if you're bringing back, you get a 2 guard, you're bringing back Kyle Anderson and Jonas Valanciunas and Jaren Jackson, can take a leap next year, and you add some more pieces to it, and Dylan Brooks is back in the mix. But I think you could talk yourself into it not being crazy that you could be a playoff team next year. But I do think Mike Conley would want to be assured he's going to be in the playoffs, because once you're in the playoffs, you've got a chance.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to say, hey, I want to compete for championships. Okay, cool. Like, where are you going that they could spend? I guess Utah's the one you could argue, right?
Right. Yeah.
They could theoretically have you on a $30 million contract, and yes, you could be competing, for a chance to play for a title. Like, I can see that.
I think the rumors that make sense as far as him going to maybe having a chance to make noise in the playoffs outside of Memphis. It's the Utah rumor, and then the whole scenario if LeBron and the Lakers completely strike out and then decide to have Conley traded into their cap space. But then again, as a Grizzlies fan, I'm thinking, did he mean it when he actually wanted the Eastern Conference? And so then if you come up with the Eastern Conference teams, it's like, does he want to go to the Pistons? Why would he want to go to the Pistons? Or why would he want to go? I don't know.
No, the one I could buy would be Indiana.
Yeah. Or so the Pacers was a great one from last year, where it seemed like
he would 100% want to go there. That's home.
Yeah, and that would make sense too. But then again, when I'm looking at the offers, for Mike Conley, it's do I want to trade Mike Conley for a pretty mediocre draft asset? I guess Grizzlies bloggers we could get Domantas Sabonis, out of that, which he's a youngish guy. But that, no, I'm saying that's best case scenario. Grizzlies bloggers are saying that, and I'm even looking at the Grizzlies rosters. Well, what would we do with him and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Jonas Valanciunas and Kyle Anderson and anyway, I do have trouble envisioning these things. But again, I was just wondering, has Mike said just make it happen? I want to go make the All-Star team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, I have had people tell me that maybe the Grizzlies should have done the deal, because I think they got offered what was reported was 2 first-rounders, and that the deals may not be as good this summer. I'm not sure I believe that.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see. I mean, obviously, listen, people are still going to be trying to get him. Once your name's out there, your name's out there.
DeLon Wright, came on like gangbusters for the Grizzlies at the end of the season. Put up a lot of stats. I think he's second all time now in Grizzlies triple doubles in franchise history. But he put up a lot of stats in borderline meaningless games. He's a restricted free agent. Do you think it's important to the franchise to keep him around? I mean, he's like kind of like the crown jewel of the entire Gasol trade. Like, does that trade look bad if he walks? So like, what focus or what level of priority should the Grizzlies have on trying to keep him around?
Well, I would say that Valanciunas is the crown jewel. If you resign, if you were to scrap the last year of Valanciunas' contract and sign him to a good deal for 3 years, and he's 27 right now, I mean, that guy puts up big numbers.
Yeah.
And I do think that he would be. Listen, I would keep him if I can. And I don't know if they're going to be able to or not. It's a price thing with DeLon. I mean, DeLon is your third guard, right? More than likely. I suppose could start. He obviously can start for you, but he can start in both those positions, and you feel great about it. But that's a tremendous luxury to have, but it's a matter of price, because I think you just see too many guys. I think you see too many teams, and especially good teams, right, who have guys coming off the bench that, if you can't be paying him starter money. You know what I'm saying?
Well, right. Yeah.
And so what does the number get to? And if it's reasonable, let's say it's $7-8 million. That's great, right? That's great. 10, not great, right?
Sure. So
that's what I'm saying.
Sorry, you were saying like you would be open, like you're all about like if we can get Valanciunas on a smaller number, let's keep him around for a few more years. Do you think that like if they keep Valanciunas and then have Jaren Jackson Jr. and does Kyle Anderson, is he still a starter in that scenario? Like, do you think that front court could work in like the 5-out kind of pace and space NBA, like having three guys who aren't really perimeter players as your front court?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how the new front office feels about Kyle Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Where that was usually what we have seen is, and let's just say that I believe the new front office probably a little more responsible, or probably had their hands in that Toronto deal more so than moves in the past, so that those would be, certainly like those moves, like let's say the ones that took place post-January. Really, anything that happened after the debacle, the blown trade, right?
The blown Oubre Brooks, yes.
Yeah. That's when things started to like change over, and you started getting a lot of people, around the league telling me, I started getting calls then. Who is Zach Kleiman, right? Zach was obviously on phone calls from that blown trade on.
So the 2 second-round picks for Justin Holiday, that's on Kleiman?
Probably.
Okay. Good to know. We got to keep score. So that's.
I don't know. I don't know that. I don't want to put that on him. I'm just telling you that as the season went on, Zach Kleiman was on calls, and whether that was just as a gatekeeper to be doing whatever Chris Wallace wanted to be doing. But I think after that trade got screwed up, I think that there was probably a little bit difference in the level of influence people had. And so what I'm saying is, front offices, everyone that I have covered over the last 17 years, they all change over the roster to their guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, Jason Levy and that group, they weren't stupid enough to break up the core four, but they tinkered every other player around that. If you go back and look, every other player, they changed them all over, all of them. They all got replaced. And the same thing goes then when Chris Wallace came back in. There was a group of players that group had brought in, and then those guys were gone. And so Kyle Anderson and obviously this new group, they're not going to do anything with Jaren Jackson, but you do wonder, what about the acquisitions that have been made over the course of the last couple of years, and how does a new front office feel about that? Because what has typically taken place is you have seen roster turnover to getting our guys in, because you want to be responsible for it, right? It's your job. I want to be responsible for it. So when we win, It's because I did something. You
Exactly.
take over a roster that somebody else built, and it's like, well, what am I doing? You know?
Right. Well, Chris, hey, thanks for your time. I guess on your way out the door, you mentioned the debacle of the trade, the Oubre for Dylan Brooks thing. Are there any untold explanations for how that went down? Like, you don't have to give me the story if you know it, but just, is there a story out there beyond they didn't know which Brooks they were talking about? Because I will never believe that was the case. Like, is there something else to how that trade failed?
I mean, I guess, I hope, I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out of school. They all blame Ernie.
I know they blame Ernie, but there's no way I can believe that you could be on a trade call and not know what players you're talking about. Like, I can't wrap my brain around it. It seems like something else had to have happened.
Well, number one, intensely sloppy. Chris Wallace doesn't have a job anymore, Keith. Okay,
so he's scouting. Isn't he scouting?
Yeah, but I mean, as in that role, I'm saying it's sloppy. Number one.
Yeah,
I do, and then I think you have on one end you got Robert Sarver. Look at who was dealing. Look at what was happening.
I know, man. I know the cast of characters in there, but still.
I mean, it's Robert Sarver and it's Chris Wallace and it's Ernie Grunfeld. Like, come on. And so I do think that Phoenix. If you want something untold, I do believe that Phoenix talked to somebody with the Grizzlies about Dylan Brooks. And that's how that all happened. I think that, but I do not think that was like then. I think they had talked to somebody, had shown interest in Dylan Brooks prior to, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, like, teams talk about this and they say, hey, let's look and let's see if there's a depreciated asset out there. Is there somebody else that you guys are like, hey, we really need a feisty guy that would be a good pairing with Devin, blah, blah, blah. And so they say, hey, let's call the Grizzlies about, Dylan Brooks. So they call Grizzlies about Dylan Brooks. And, of course, the story always has to go, oh, yeah, but they were shot down immediately. Like, they probably weren't shot down immediately. Come on, we're not talking about Michael Jordan here, okay? So they probably aren't shut down immediately. That was out there. They talked about it, but nothing ever came of it, right? So now, come time around, when Ernie Grunfeld does say Brooks, that's the only Brooks in their mind. I believe two things. I believe, number one, Ernie Grunfeld does not even know that Marshawn Brooks is a person. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it never even dawned on him to clarify which Brooks. And number two, that Phoenix had talked to the Grizzlies prior to about Dylan Brooks. So, of course, it just stood to reason when Brooks comes up, that's the Brooks that you're talking about. And so while that isn't necessarily the most sexy response of how this debacle could happen, I do think that's how the debacle happens. I think once it is conveyed, hey, and you'll get Brooks from Memphis, it's in their mind, it's now been clarified. Nobody's ever said Marshawn. Ernie probably doesn't know there is another Brooks. And then, Phoenix takes it as, oh my God, we're getting Dylan Brooks, who we wanted, and we had already called them about. And Robert Sarver the way that all comes out, from what I remember, was that Robert Sarver was at some kind of Phoenix event. Remember when that radio host was like coming out with all that crap, and he was like, "No, you remember he's correcting everybody."
Well, it was the Phoenix. It was Chris Harrington versus the Phoenix radio host. Well, they were like, "No, my sources are saying it's definitely Marshawn," and then he's like, "No."
Yeah. So somebody told me that radio host was at an event with Sarver. I think they were all just sitting around, and so obviously he's literally getting the news from Sarver, who's got the news wrong, right? And so that's why he was so indignant about it all. Like, you can't say that, but if my stories are correct, if I recall, that's how that kind of played out when I asked about it, because it was like, what's the guy gonna do? What's the radio host gonna do? Like, of course he's being indignant about it. I mean, but he can't say, dude, I'm sitting next to Robert Sarver, right? Like, I know what I'm talking about, because that's what I would have done, right? I mean, I would have been like, dude, I am sitting next to Robert Pera. Stop telling me what the deal is, right? Which makes it even more funny that you could be indignant about something that you were wrong about, but that would explain how you could be wrong about it, right?
Yeah, I guess that it sort of makes sense. I guess we can all, Wizards and Grizzlies fans, can at least be vaguely optimistic with new leadership, at least somewhat.
Well, I thought that was so interesting that Conley brought that up at the end of the year.
Yeah,
that he brought up how that screwed us up, and there is, because I think, and I'm probably guilty of this too. It's all happening in the moment. And obviously it was screwy the way that took place and everything. But if you go back and look at what their record was that night, it's rather unbelievable, the free fall you would have to be you would have to really come up with some kind of crazy concoction to believe that is coincidence.
Right.
That it's just coincidence that the team fell apart completely, because they're in the playoffs that night. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I remember.
After 82 games, you're right, and you remember that as a blip on the radar. It's something that happened, but like in the moment, it was also crazy, and everybody's goofing about it, whatever. But then, as the free fall happens, it's like Shelvin stinks, and Shelvin and Jermichael are playing with Mark every night, and like you get caught up in the day to day, and rather than taking a step back and saying, "Hey, hold on now, what the hell happened here? This team fell apart." And for Conley to say, "No, this thing had a profound effect on us," there's really no evidence to the contrary.
That's right. Well, Chris, I've kept you too long. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll look forward to talking with you again soon sometime.
No problem. Anytime. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Chris. All right. Thanks to Chris for coming on. You can catch him every weekday on Grind City Media's Chris Vernon Show, and Tuesdays with Tony Allen. It's the highlight of one of the highlights of the podcasting week. Tony Allen is on there every Tuesday with Chris Vernon. So check that out, even if you're not a Grizzlies fan. Tuesdays with Tony on the Chris Vernon Show. Like Chris was talking about, just looked it up. The Grizzlies were 16-11 when they failed to trade for Kelly Oubre, and of course they finished 33-49. So what's that? 17-38. After the failed Oubre trade. I also like to point out they were 13-8 when they signed Joakim Noah, and fell apart after that too. But again, I don't have any reporting on that. Anyway, if you want to support our show, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Download the Draft app, draft.com/fastbreak. Use our code FASTBREAK for a free $3 entry into any of the games there. Or you can follow me on Twitter at FastBreakBreak. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. You guys are the best. Thanks for listening. And remember, breakfast is the most important thing.
Yeah, never apologize for being G&G. Fast break, man. You understand?